Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we're taking a look at some interesting cards currently trending on the market because of their applications in the upcoming couple of formats. Now this is going to be a really busy summer. We just had Monster Mayhem come out, which gave us the Punk, Orchist, and Dragon Maid support, all of which have the potential to be meta-relevant themes. But on top of that, we have Duelist Advance coming out right before the NAWCQ, and then we also have Justice Hunters coming out just a month later. There's a ton of events that players are looking ahead at and trying to prepare for, and so we're seeing a ton of those cards seeing market movement early on. Let's get started. Kicking things off, let's take a look at Vanquish Soul Jolong. So we talked about this card a few weeks ago, but the card has seen a ton of price movement since then. This actually used to be one of the more forgettable Vanquish Soul cards, as it came out well after the deck's original wave of support and didn't really get that much attention. However, Vanquish Soul is getting new support cards in Duelist Advance, and they also work really well with the new K9 cards that are coming in Justice Hunters, and we've actually seen the deck really dominate and basically become a tier 1, maybe even tier 0.5 strategy over in the OCG. As a result, everyone is excited for the support to come out here in the TCG. Jolong is a key card because it can be special summoned from the hand whenever you reveal a card for a Vanquish Soul effect, and also it has an effect on the field where you can reveal 2 fire monsters from your hand to search for any Vanquish Soul card from your deck as well. On top of that, it is a level 5, so you can go into a rank 5 Xyz play alongside something like the new Vanquish Soul Holly Sue coming in Duelist Advance. So when Age of Overlord came out, this card was basically a bulk ultra rare. It wasn't really something that people were really chasing after or really wanted, so you could generally find them for under $1. In fact, when it wasn't reprinted in last year's Megatins, despite falling into that reprint range, no one really was that surprised. Now, however, that the card is expected to be a 2 to 3 of in possibly the best deck of the format, everyone has been scrambling to pick these up. When we looked at them a few weeks ago, they were only around $5 to $7, but they're now up to between $18 and $20 a piece. Definitely a crazy price jump, though we do have to be careful. Just because it only has one printing right now doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, and there's definitely a chance that we could see it reprinted in either Justice Hunters itself or an OTS tournament pack that comes out around that time. This is the type of card that you'll definitely want to own a playset of if you are looking to play the deck in the future, but definitely consider moving your extra copies while they are at this hyped up price. So another card related to the Vanquish Soul K9 deck here, we have number 67, Paradise Smasher. So this is something else that we've talked about a couple of times on Market Watch now. It's a generic rank 5 Xyz monster that has a really good chance to stop your opponent from playing the game, as if you manipulate the dice roll correctly, your opponent can't activate monster effects for the rest of this turn, which ensures that the rest of your turn can be played mostly uninterrupted, but also for their next turn. So this means this can functionally be a turn skip, which is obviously really frustrating to play against. The one downside is that you generally do need 3 materials under this card, since you detach 2 for its effect, and it also has to have a material for you to manipulate the roll. But 3 level 5 monsters to effectively say, I can play the game but my opponent can't, just is a really crazy effect and honestly kind of broken. So anyways, this card has been expensive for a while. When we first talked about it, it was about $10. We've recently seen it for anywhere from $25 to $30, as it has really become an extra deck staple for Vanquish Soul K9 over in the OCG recently. However, it's worth noting that the card was actually banned in the OCG just this past weekend, and that was really the only hit to Vanquish Soul K9. It seems that the card was just too degenerate for even the OCG. This really does lead me to think that the card could get banned in the TCG, maybe even preemptively if Konami really doesn't want the turn skip to be a thing. Now, even before this, I've generally been of the opinion that you should offload your extra copies of this card, since it was relatively expensive, but it also had a lot of different places where it could have been reprinted. It still might be in Justice Hunters or an OTS tournament pack, but I could have also seen it being in something like Monster Mayhem as well. If you are still holding on to multiple copies, you almost definitely want to get rid of your extras now, since the OCG has signaled to us that this card most likely won't be around in the game for very much longer. I do want to take a second to remind all of you to check out our website, MST.merch.com. Now, over at MST.merch.com, we have everything that you will need to optimize your Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament experience. We have the basics with white, black, pink, and our new purple matted sleeves, which are my personal favorites, as well as smooth and matted sleeves to double sleeve your valuable cards and sleeves with for tournament play. But we also have some other items that you can really use to customize your collection. We have amazing foil sleeves, including some with the MST.TV logo, and dividers and subdividers so that you can keep your collection perfectly organized and easily accessible. Regardless of if you're a competitive or casual player, I'm certain that you'll find something that you will enjoy over at MSTmerch.com. Next up, we have a pretty interesting one. It's Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon. So this is a fairly new card coming out in Supreme Darkness. You summon it out of the extra deck by sending 2 face-up monster cards from your spell trap zone to the graveyard, and then while it's on the field, you can push a monster from the field to the back row as well. Now this card came out well after Snake Eyes were meta relevant. I think Ash and Poplar were both already hit, and so it has never seen play at all. In fact, even though it was a secret rare from a core set, this was literally only $1 or so. However, the card has started to see some play as an extra deck tech card alongside the Millennium Engine. Recently, we've seen some deck lists running a Millennium Engine consisting of Sengenjin, Golem, and Wedju Temple. Basically, you would use these to get 2 bodies onto the field, then have Wedju Temple place 2 monsters to the back row so that you could send them to make the Doom Dragon. This gives you a bunch of bodies that you can link with without burning your normal summon, and 2 of them happen to be level 8, so you can use them to make something like Zombie Vampire to help go through some more combo pieces, or number 90 to get a monster effect negation early to play through Nibiru. Anyways, with this sudden increase in play, Snake Eyes Doom Dragon has jumped up in price to around $8 to $10. Nothing too crazy, but if you opened up Supreme Darkness, there's a good chance that you have a few of these lying around in your bulk. You might just want to try to package them up with the rest of your Millennium cards and try to get some value out of them. The next card we have here is Ground Zeno. So Ground Zeno is a really amazing card for the dinosaur type. It technically came out back in Wild Survivors and is support for the Transcendosaurus cards, but it really just feels like a generic dino card. It lets you search for a dinosaur tuner or vanilla and then destroy a card from your hand. This is actually really amazing because you can search for and pop Baby Ceresaurus, which can summon Soul Eating Oviraptor, who can then search for any dinosaur in the game. Now unfortunately, the thing with dinos is that they don't really have any good archetypes. It's more just like any dino deck, uses a bunch of the same cards, maybe a few cards from some specific archetype that might be interesting. Anyways, Ground Zeno is apparently getting attention because of the Jirac theme, which got a few new support cards in Monster Mayhem. Now I personally am not too familiar with the deck, but Ground Zeno is strong enough of a starter that it adds a lot of consistency to whatever Jirac wants to do. Of course, Jiracs aren't going to be meta relevant anytime soon, but dinosaurs are actually a pretty popular deck because they're really cheap and easy to put together, and the new Jirac cards aren't particularly expensive either. In fact, the only really expensive piece of the deck used to be Ground Zeno. The card got a reprint in the 2024 tins, so you used to be able to grab either the Ultra or Secret Rare printing for about $5 each. Unfortunately, the attention that the card has gotten over the last few weeks has caused it to jump up to just under the $20 mark, as both of its printings are still relatively difficult to find. This is something I would only look to pick up if you guys are wanting to play the card. I think it's very likely to fall in price in the near future, given that it's not going to be meta relevant at all, and it also has the risk of being reprinted again and crashing in price, so you'll probably want to move your copies of this card sooner rather than later. Moving on, we have Totem Bird. Now this is a pretty simple one. I remember when Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy first came out, I had friends that got so mad because they thought they pulled Dracosac, and it ended up being Totem Bird because they're both Xyz, and they're both wins, so it was just really troll. Now this is a card that's a rank 3 Xyz monster that requires both materials to be wind. Its effect is really simple, where you can detach 2 materials from it to negate a spell or trap card, but then this card loses 300 attack points. So I don't know why it is that Konami felt the need to include so many nerfs on this card. Like, it only has 1900 attack points, so losing 300 doesn't really matter. It doesn't make that much of a difference. And does it really need to lose both materials instead of just one? Anyways, this card eventually did see some play back in Zodiac format, since you could make this card with Terror Top and Take Tomborg, not using your normal summon, if you already had access to your Zodiac cards and didn't need to go into MX Saber Invoker. However, that was a long time ago, but the card is getting some attention once again. Now, it seems that players are considering running this card in the new MST archetype that's coming out in Doom of Dimensions. Their monsters are all wind, and they're able to make this card, so this might be an interesting piece of their end board. Now, of course, this is all just theory right now, as the cards aren't even legal in the OCG yet, so we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer to find out just how good they are. I know some people are talking about the new MST cards as possibly being a useful engine. We'll just have to wait and see. For right now, the original secret rares are coming in at about $10 to $12, while the reprints from the tins are only about $7. Fortunately, this card did receive a rare reprint back in Legendary Duelist Synchro Storm, so if you don't mind playing that lower rarity, definitely dig up a couple of these from your bulk so that you can play them and offload the secrets while they're hyped up. Alright, here's one I want to touch on briefly. It's Tri-Brigade Fractal. So the Tri-Brigade theme is one that I always thought was going to be broken. They just ended up being like good, but never really that crazy. Basically, the archetypes thing is that they have effects on the field where you can conduct a link summon by banishing materials from your graveyard, which sounds good, but I guess the monsters just never really were enough to do anything sort of insane outside of when you combine them with like Zodiac and Lyrilusk. So now there's a new Beast family deck that looks like it has the potential to be top tier, and that is Lunalights. The Lunalight theme is getting some new support cards in Duelist Advance that are really strong, and they look like they might be one of the most popular decks going into the upcoming format. Fractal happens to just be a one-of that some Lunalight players are running. As a Beast Warrior, this card is searchable with Tanky, but this card lets you discard it and then send a level 3 or lower Beast family monster from your deck to the graveyard. So this allows you to send either Tiger or Black Sheep, which can then be added back to your hand if you have a Gold Leo on your side of the field already. So with Fractal, it has just 2 printings. It was an ultra rare in Phantom Rage and then a secret rare in the tins. The thing is, this card hasn't been reprinted since I believe 2021, so it's not something that too many players are just going to have lying around in their binders anymore. Right now, you can still find this card for only like $3 to $4 a piece for either printing. If you are interested in playing Lunalights in the future, you might want to grab a copy or two while they're still relatively affordable. And finally, let's take a quick look at Abyssphere. So Abyssphere used to be a really big card for the Mermail deck. It summons a Mermail from your deck with its effect negated, but then it's destroyed during your opponent's next end phase and it takes the monster that it summoned out with it. Now back when Mermail first came out, you would use Sphere to summon out Lind, then Lind would get destroyed during your opponent's end phase, and you could then bring out something like an Abyss Pike and trigger its effect for a follow-up search, or another big Mermail monster like Megalo or Lead to hopefully try to push for game. Unfortunately, in the current format, this card is just way too slow. Modern Mermail still uses cards like Pike, but Sphere being a trap means it just doesn't do enough. In Quarter Century Stampede, we saw a bunch of previously expensive Mermail cards get reprinted. Cards like Abyss Gaios, Abyss Lind, and Abyss Pike were all printed in a bunch of different rarities, and then even cards like Atlantean Marksman and Atlantean Heavy Infantry finally got reprints. The one card that never got reprinted was Abyss Sphere, likely because Konami knows that the card wouldn't see play in today's game. However, this did sort of backfire on the community, as players want to build Mermail in various Time Wizard formats, and Abyss Sphere is a card that they need to play. So basically, with so many of the other key cards reprinted, Mermail should have been a budget Time Wizard deck. It's just Sphere that's almost impossible to find, and it makes the deck sort of expensive. Abyss Sphere was only ever printed in Abyss Rising as an Ultra and Ultimate Rare. There's hardly any copies available on TCG Player, and the sold listings are all over the place. It seems that the Ultras are around 15 to 20, while the Ultis are around $30 to $35. A bit more of a random one since it really is only for Time Wizard format, but definitely check to see if you have any of these to move if you are an older player, since a reprint will definitely bring the card's price crashing down, just like it did with the rest of the Mermail cards, and you'll want to get yourself off of these as soon as possible. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. Definitely really interesting to see that OCG ban list kind of come out of nowhere. I sort of forgot about the ban list because it feels like we had one not that long ago, but maybe this is a sign that we're going to get one coming up soon. Hopefully they actually announce it at the NAWCQ. That would be a crazy epic way to end Nationals. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.